Okay, hi everyone, welcome back, thanks for sticking with us. Right, so we're going to pick up a discussion where we left off actually, because we've got one more pillar that we need to tackle, and then we're going to open it up to a big kind of group therapy, big conversation style session. So in terms of where we are just now then, so our final pillar, I'll just move on here. So we are now on the kind of pillar 5, planning versus advice. And what we kind of mean by that is that we've kind of seen that even just kind of as a perception, even if not in the reality, there's been a bit of a shift in kind of the different kind of approaches and styles of practice that firms are taking. So we had advice, financial advice, then we kind of moved to like financial planning, then we've kind of had a bit of behavioural-led planning, coaching and life coaching and all of that good stuff thrown in for good measure as well. But we were kind of just wondering, what if we've lost something along the way with that? And actually, is there a bit of an argument for going back to basics and that core skill set of advice? So that's kind of what we're going to explore today. And we also, perhaps, if the conversation goes there, we might just look at that shift to financial planning and the behavioural piece, and whether actually financial planners are truly equipped to be going to some quite deep and vulnerable places with clients, and are planners the right people to be going there with clients in that way? So we'll kind of get into all of that. So the person who's going to represent our last and final pillar is Victor Sachs from VS Associates. So please welcome Victor to the stage. Okay. So Victor, I'll kind of throw you an opening question and you can tell me yes or no.
I feel like I'm Dave Allen. I don't know if anyone anyway.
Propped up on the bar still. Yeah. So let's kick off then. So in terms of advice versus planning then, there is this kind of idea, I guess, that people are coming to planners with their hopes and dreams and all of that. But do you think that's actually what clients want, or do they actually perhaps need to be sold to? Where do you kind of sit on that scale in terms of the advice versus planning piece?
All right, first and foremost, I do not shy away from the fact that I am a salesperson. Whether I'm selling me, whether it's a product, I'm married, so I sold myself to my wife. We're all selling. I firmly 100% and fundamentally believe we sell. And even if it's selling us, our concepts, our ideas, we fundamentally sell. If we're having to sell, then we have to let our client know what it is we're talking to them about. So I'm very happy to talk about an ISA and what an ISA does. I'm very happy to talk about a pension plan and what a pension does, or what a general investment account, OIC, unit trust, whatever you want to call them, discretionary trust, investment bonds, whatever the product is, I'm happy to do it. And if the product then drives the solution, then so be it. And in fairness, the vast majority of my clients, the average age of my client is 53. They run their own business. They normally refer me on to their parents, and then they normally refer me to their kids. They don't know what a pension is. They don't know what they're going to do in 20 years' time. So to go in with, how do you see yourself in 20 years' time? They haven't got a Scooby. They hope their business survives next year, and the year after, and the year after, and the year after. My clients are very much that they've just passed their driving test in the financial planning world. To me, cash flow forecasting, cash flow planning, life coaching, and everything else, that's a Lamborghini Hurricane, right? That's up at the top. If my 17-year-old, my son is 11, if he comes to me and said, right, pass my test, I am not going to give him a Ferrari. I'm going to give him a bashed up, beaten old car to learn on. And likewise, a client coming to me for the first time, I'm not going to sit there and talk about, here's a buoyant cash flow plan, look at all these lovely figures, Venn diagrams, well, you're going to eat quinoa, let me talk to you about life planning, let me talk to you about coaching, let me do this. I'm not doing it, and I don't do it. Here is a Vanguard Life Strat, here's an Aviva multi-asset fund, here is whatever it is, it's one step away from your bank account. Let's go on this journey together. I don't care I'm not interested. If you've got a plan for the future, let's not talk about that just yet. You've got an issue with corp tax or income tax and whatever it is, let's resolve that now. During our journey, we'll go from this beaten up car, we'll go to something else, and maybe I'll get you into a Lamborghini. But I'm not going to stick you in a Lamborghini from day one and give you everything. And equally, your last point, I'm not qualified for life coaching. I'm not qualified for any of that. All I'm good at is being in front of a client. Picture me, front of house, restaurant, what do you want to eat? Here's a glass of wine, I'll go and tell the chef. Yeah, and I'll come and present it. Hope you've had a nice time in my restaurant and you'll come again. I outsource everything. All I do is sit and talk analogies with my clients. And anyone thinking about doing it, there is nothing wrong with it. I've got nearly 20 million reasons why my business works. And that business has grown organically by me. I've not bought anybody. I've gone out, I've hunted, I continue to hunt, and I continue to win business. I have a 0.75 ongoing fee. I don't need to add in financial planning, cash flow forecast, anything else to justify it. If I don't like it, they'll leave. And they haven't. And they keep coming. And I constantly work on me to make sure I try and deliver the best I possibly can. Obviously, Consumer Duty will make me, and it has asked me to question what I do, as I hope it's questioned everybody what they do. And there may or may not be some changes, but I'm not going to build in smoke and mirrors and any other aspects to justify a fee or a cost or a charge. The fee or the cost of the charge is what it is. There you go, that's me.
Perfect. Thank you, Victor. And so in terms of, let's talk about this move to planning then. Do you think that has happened, that there has been a kind of widespread move to financial planning and behavioural planning? And do you think that sometimes you might lose something in that? I'm thinking like the technical skill underpinning good, solid advice.
When I sit on Twitter,
Here we
and
go.
I feel, and I listen, I'm, as I say, one person, there's no one else in my business other than me. And I'm putting out there what I think. And there are people out there who are fountains and turn into becoming drains, who will tell me that because I'm just this lowly diploma qualified advisor, I don't possess CFP, that I'm not chartered, that I don't do cash flow forecasting in every client situation. I'm a rogue, I'm a charlatan, I'm a shitbag, basically. And I don't want to feel that way. And there are plenty of times when even me, this larger than life, big old character with the most ridiculous pair of shoes on, wants to turn around and say to someone, I knew I'd get you to look at my shoes. Yeah. They're amazing, I love my shoes. It shouldn't be that way. I'm one of these, we do what we do. I'm one of those people who will stand up and say, I don't care if a client goes to SJP. I'd sooner a client goes to SJP than some TikTok advisor or someone else and gets scammed out of hundreds of thousands of pounds. Because if FJP do it wrong, they will pay that client and they will shield it away from the press. Yeah. I would sooner that. Let me get to a point where everybody seeks financial advice from a regulated person. And once that happens, then we can kick them out and say, you're going to leave, you're going to charge you 9% to walk out the door. Yeah, that we can have that fun and games about SJP's exit strategy. But my big thing is unification and bringing us together in a regulated space. I'm not a financial planner. If you've got your qualifications to do it, crack on and do it. But if you're sitting there going, I don't, and I feel a bit bad, be you. Be the best version of you and your clients will love you for it.
Lovely, thank you, Victor. Right, challenge panel. How do you want to come back in on that? Fee, I'm going to start with you.
Don't make me cry.
Yeah. If I upset your shoes, then you would cry, wouldn't you? Yeah. First of all, I'd say we're really good in this profession at running down other groups that don't do things the way we do, and I don't like that at all. There's room for more than one way of doing things. So if I call you a shit, it's not because of that.
That's quite a good start.
I am interested, though, exactly, you're quite happy, I'm not a planner and I don't do all this stuff. I'm interested how far you go down the line, because I think you do, obviously. And just for example, if we took your suitability report and your summary bit, what would you be saying in there to the client? What I've discovered about you, what I'm recommending and why I'm recommending it. Just talk me through that bit.
So generally a suitability report would actually say, you have come to talk to me because you've been hit with a big corporation tax bill. Mm-hmm. You are paying this amount. You have recognised, or we have discovered and chatted, that there is X amount that you do not require access to for now and the future, or to be paid away as dividends, or need for emergency cash for buying stock or anything else. You like the idea of being able to put this away for at some point in the future. We have identified that if we put this away until you were 57, 58, 60, 65, whatever, that is suitable. I can demonstrate that there are no, from the balance sheet, that there's no cash flow issues. And in order to do that, we then discussed, pension planning, not necessarily as a retirement vehicle, because it is likely you'll remain in your business in some way, shape or form or another, but purely letting the tax tail wag the investment dog. And in order to take that money off the balance sheet to save corporation tax, you are happy. By the way, you've got nothing put aside in that space. We've got this risk profile, this attitude to risk. In time, we will come to view this, and when you know your plans further, we'll go down. How much do you need? What do you need? How much? Let's do a cash flow forecast, whatever. But for now, this is the reason why I'm in front of you. And this is my recommendation, how we can combat that.
I'd call that a plan.
Call it what you want. I'm not sitting there. I'm not sitting there turning around. But I've been front and centre and spoken to this person that this is a pension up front, and this then leads to a solution. I'm not coming away from the fact that of course there is planning within it. What I'm not afraid of is to be product-led and driven, and I'm a bank assurer. And that training I had for 18 years with HSBC taught me a lot, taught me good stuff, taught me bad stuff. But it taught me never to shy away from actually talking about a product and what it does and how it could benefit. Use the client's own words, make sure you put exclamation marks in there and bring it right back to this is a pension and this is what it does.
Yeah, well, as long as you're doing what it does, yeah.
And as long as you tell the client what it does, rather than I've got the 11 herbs and spices that KFC have got, but I'm not going to tell you what those are. You just pass me your money and I'll take care of it for you. I'm not doing that.
I've got to say, I'm really...
Not that anyone here would do that, was it? No.
I am really loving the Victor Sachs analogies that are coming out just now. It's like
there's plenty more.
You can make a book. Right, let me come to the rest of the challenge panel, and then I'm going to come and pick on you guys. And you at home, I haven't forgotten you either. Sian and John, anything you want to dive in on any of that?
I was just going to say, I think you're right. There is a lot of bashing when it comes to a financial advisor versus a financial planner. So there is a lot of that goes on out there. We work with financial planners. I involve myself in financial planning and financial planners, but you touched on that it goes into life coaching. And these financial planners have life coaching interests. They've gone down the route of doing courses, getting trained as coaches. So it's a specialized, more of a specialised route, I think. What do you think the profession could do better, if anything, to guide people, younger people that are coming into the profession, maybe going through the academy stage, to see what the kind of route is for them? Because some people will be guided and will be more interested in the life coaching planning aspect fitting together rather than the advice product driven role. I think it will continue to exist.
I 100% agree. I think if that's the way a person wants to go, they've got the training, they can showcase that. Whether or not they can do that in conjunction with financial advice, or whether or not they can sit there and actually be an all-ears, actively listening counsellor, life planner, coach to that person, and finds out way more than You know, any of us can because we're not trained in that way and we don't spend all our time in that particular area. It's genius. And then you pair that up with a product guidance from a qualified advisor who spends their time talking about the product and how it can help solve that issue. I think it's great. You want another analogy? I wouldn't want a brain surgeon taking my tonsils out. Right? I want the brain surgeon to work on the brain. Yeah? And I want a tonsil specialist to take out my tonsils. I do not believe that we can be good. You said it earlier, jack of all trades, master of none. I don't think we can be good at everything. Okay. And so using in conjunction with life planner, the advisor comes in, and you come in as a two, fantastic. Okay. That's purely my view.
Perfect. And I also just want to say, so we are being quite representative today, and I'm going to come to you, John, I promise, but we're being representative today, and we've got one sort of camp being represented, and we also have Sian, who is passed her CFP today, so congratulations.
Well done, Sian.
So one isn't better than the other. One isn't better than the other, but I just wanted to pass on congratulations from the Landcat and from Home Trees, and just to embarrass Sian really more than anything else. John, what do you want to say?
Hi, Victor. I suspect we might be similar ages, so I've seen...
34. I've just had a hard life.
Yeah, no. Thanks.
I've reached the age of Heinz. I'm 57.
No, haven't seen the shoes. I'm not even going to go there. But watching new people coming into the industry now, many of them are drawn towards planning. I've never seen smarter young people come into the industry in 30 years in the industry than I have now. I think the standard is high, and we've seen some of them today. But my question is, do you think somewhere along the line we've lost the art of sales? The training that we all had, and it's a secondary point to the same question. Would you mind sharing with how you would talk about the value that you deliver to your clients, almost thinking post-consumer duty? Because I think a lot of people are going to hide behind systems and leave potentially confused clients looking at very complicated outcomes, not actually realizing what's at the end of their own nose.
As an old fart, I think the young uns have lost the art of conversation. You know, I've got 3 big kids from first marriage, 27 down to 21, and I've got an 11-year-old from my current marriage. The current's wrong. My marriage.
It's going
always
well,
open. My ex-wife, and I get on really well with her, don't get me wrong, and my 27-year-old daughter can be upstairs, my ex-wife downstairs, she's texting her to tell her dinner's ready. Yeah. Right? That's 27. So we have lost a basic art of conversation, and in that comes sales. In that comes that whole holistic view, watching body language clustering. Does the hand to mouth mean they don't understand? All of that stuff that we got taught back in the day has gone, and that art is lost. It really is. How do I demonstrate value? It's so difficult. How can I? It's full of analogies. It's you know, we're getting into the car, we're driving for the first time. We're going to jump on we're going to go sailing, we're going in the yacht, and I'm going to be putting my hand on your shoulder, navigating you through these choppy waters. That's my job. And if you get too close to one end or too close to one bank, I will help you steer. And eventually, off we'll go and sail the oceans together. But this is my start point. This is the value. From coming out of a bank, to 4.5 to regulated investment funds of some 4,500. My job is to actively listen to you while I'm sitting here, but I will not skirt away from saying, actually, what would work for you is a pension, and this is how it works. And what would work for you is an ISA, and this is how it works. And I think we have lost the art of conversation. We've lost the art, 2 ears, 1 mouth, use them in the proportions that God gave them to us. Right, any more? I'm getting a point, Tally. For
I need a klaxon, don't I? Picture analogy.
You know, that art that I was taught during the 80s, in my view, we have sailed away completely to being reliant on tech, letting tech do the job, bring in ChatGPT, which will serve and do a great purpose. But we are losing the art of conversation, sales skills, soft skills, actively listening to our clients. Yes, I do believe that.
Okay, great. Let's pause there, and I want to kind of open it out much wider now, based beyond Victor's wisdom to like everybody's wisdom, basically. So if I could invite Helena back to the stage, and if we could get Anthony back up on screen. Might want to just pull it forward so
Yeah,
you
because
can
I'm
see
big.
you.
You might pull it forward.
So there's Anthony by the power of technology. Does anybody have any questions for any of our mould breakers, or to follow up on anything that has been raised by the challenge panel? Please raise your hands now. I think there's one just there at the back. So this is Dan, who we heard from earlier. Hi, Dan.
Hello. Hopefully I don't cause this microphone to make the noises like I did earlier on. So a couple of questions. Firstly, Helena. So my background, I've got a degree in computing. Hello. Got a degree in computing, and kind of in our business, I've kind of reinvented our tech stack. I've coded automation programs myself in order to speed things up. When clients come into the office, often they think they know what their objective is, and they come to us and go, well, here's a spreadsheet, or here's this, and this is what I want to do. But it's because they're working in the confines of what they know or what they think is possible. So it's a question of like, how do you deal with that with younger people when certainly on the do-it-yourself, kind of the tech side, I appreciate, maybe ChatGPT helps that in a few years' time. But how do you really get kind of what the actual real objectives are and help them to understand what's possible?
It's a really interesting question, and one that actually took quite a while to think through, because when I started thinking about doing something to solve the problem, I really tried to break it down to what do I do in my day job now, and how do I approach that, and how can I digitize that? And when you start from that sort of basic, take a step back, what do you do in a first meeting? You have a conversation. It's not a fact find, it shouldn't be a fact find, it's a conversation. It's what we just talked about, Victor just said. You're creating a way of asking people questions that will make them think. You don't give advice in a first meeting, well, you shouldn't give advice in a first meeting. But you do engage them afterwards and tell them, okay, I've looked at what you've told me, and I've noticed these things that need work. It's the rules, isn't it? We all, financial planners in the room, including you. We know that we can look at a client situation and put a lens over it that's years and years of experience, years and years of technical knowledge. And textbooks, it's not going to wash. It doesn't work for everyone. The answer to the question might lead to the outcome for that client. You know as well as I do, that's something you can code. That is something you can create a rule around, which is why we need to innovate. It can't just be product providers and investment solutions. It's got to come from us too.
The fear is that we've seen this before. So I was kind of about 5 years ago, I can't remember the firm, but they said, okay, and I asked the same question at that time, how do you cope with finding the true client objective and then kind of implementing it? Unfortunately, they're no longer a firm because it's something that they struggled to really get. So I hope that, hope it kind of works out. Next question, thank you very much, was to Anthony. So
Briefly though, Dan, if you don't mind.
Oh, hello, sorry.
Just briefly, a brief question.
Sorry, very brief question. It was just challenging kind of the idea of independence. So you said most of the firms that you're buying in have two platforms that they're using. It was just effectively saying, just having a couple of platforms doesn't mean that you are kind of not independent. If we know that the best place for a junior ISA is this, the best place for something is X, Y, and Z, they operate it the best. The independence comes kind of a step above that. So it's not unnatural for people to have just a couple of platforms because the amount of research should get down to that level to say, this is who I think it is. And the independence comes in when you say, okay, they're no longer the best place, so therefore I'm going to move everything over to elsewhere. So it's just coming back and just slightly challenging that idea of what independence is versus, just because it's a couple of platforms, not restricted.
Thank you, Dan. And it's something that's come up on the online questions as well around, we did sort of allude to earlier, Anthony, you're here for me there, but you're behind there. We did kind of allude to it earlier that I think you sort of touched on the argument about independence and restricted. You know, sometimes they're not that far apart because, you know, people are working from panels and stuff. But one of the points that Dan raises and that's been raised online is this idea of like the starting point is different. Independent are kind of looking at the whole of the market and then they're whittling it down, where restricted aren't doing that. So how do you kind of come back on that point, I guess?
Yeah, still, what's in a name? I think the issue, I don't really take any issue with what Dan's just said. And when I was talking to a fairly well-known industry commentator around this only last week, and you know, they were saying, oh well, you know, if you're independent, then you know, of course, you would do an annual appraisal of, you know, which platform you're going to work with and whether it's still appropriate and suitable, and is there a better option, and which sounds great, of course. But the only challenge I'd lay down there is what's the reality of A, that happening, and B, if you do determine that the platform you've been working with is no longer the right one, say for a junior ISA, using Dan's example, are you actually then going to set up a new relationship with you, migrate all of your clients from the other platform onto that one? And I think the basic reality is, in the real world, that's just not happening. And so I think it's the regulatory descriptions of these things that's the issue, as opposed to the sort of differing operating models. And so I'm honestly not knocking the label of independence. I just think, candidly, if I'm being absolutely honest, relative to our business, and we call ourselves restricted because we think we don't have any other choice but to do so, there isn't a lot of difference between ourselves, actually, and a lot of independent businesses. And so it makes me question whether the term independence is more a marketing tool than anything else.
Oh, okay, right. I think Fee had a question, but that's quite an explosive statement, Anthony. Fee, what do you...
Mark did ask me to be controversial, so
You're filling the brief nicely, thank you.
Yeah.
Fee.
I would just say that, yes, it is happening. We do look every year at whether the platform is the right platform. And I don't think any independent person could not do that when we've got the thing that shall not be named on the horizon. Obviously, what you don't do is then say, okay, there's a slightly better offering out there, I'm going to switch everybody to that particular offering. What you do is you weigh up the pros and cons of whether they, whether actually switching them is worth it in the context. So it does happen. The thing I wanted... Sorry?
Sorry, I was only going to say that, don't get me wrong, I'm naturally with these conversations, there's always a degree of generalisation. And as with all things, there are brilliant examples of great independent firms doing all the right things by their clients, and there are maybe others that are not doing the same, and the same can be said for the restricted landscape. So I apologise if I'm being somewhat punchy. It's just the fact that from what we've seen evidentially, there is really, honestly, not a great deal of difference with a lot of the independent firms we see in terms of the way in which they are delivering the end product from what we're doing. And in fact, there's often a great deal of inefficiency. And I guess the proof is in the pudding. We're only modest, but we bought 5 independent firms. All of those clients are coming to our business model, and we haven't lost one. And the question of, oh, you're restricted, that's awful, I'm gonna leave, find another firm that is independent, just simply hasn't happened.
Okay, thank you, Anthony. I'm going to park that Anthony conversation there. We had one question that came in for Victor from Megan. So, in summary, Victor, this is Megan's question. What one piece of advice would Victor give to his younger self starting in financial services?
Wow. Be true to yourself. You know, you said Michael Jackson, looking at the man in the mirror, asking him to make a change. You want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself, make a change. So, if you're going to do anything, look at yourself, talk your pitch, and genuinely, honestly believe that you are going to make that difference. You are going to be that person that will change that person's life that you meet. And if you do that, you will be a roaring success. If you don't, you'll be fucked.
Thanks, Victor. Right. On that bombshell, let's bring all this mould breaking to a close. Please thank our challenge panel and please thank our mould breakers.